Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about why Taurus leaves us. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Anyway, well, the thing about it is, and basically elaborate, expound what I mean by as far as why Taurus leaves us, why they just basically, why sometimes Taurus will leave us when they're in a connection, whether it's a friendship or a relationship. Why do they? What actually happens? What makes them feel like they need to take off and depart and leave people? Here is what it is. First thing I want to say. Taurus, of course, is a fixed Earth sign. They're very immutable and intransigent. They're very fixed. I think they're really unequivocally the most fixed sign of the zodiac for that reason, given that they're fixed and they're grounded because they are an Earth sign as well. The thing about Taurus is they often will stay in connections and relationships for longer than they should. They may stay in ones that are actually very detrimental to them for a longer period of time than they need to. Taurus really is very loyal and steadfast, and they have a lot of persistence, obviously, and they stay in these connections with a lot of persistence, and often when they don't even need to, when the when the connection is such where they really need to extricate themselves from it, they will often stay in it unnecessarily. And part of this is really attributed to the fact certain complacency. Keep in mind the zodiac sign Libra often falls on the sixth house cusp in a solar or natal chart for Taurus. And Taurus, often in the daily routine, they get very relaxed. They don't want to make waves or rock the boat, so to speak, or cause any issues or problems, and they just and they often will stay. Their day-to-day routine can often be in a relaxed state where they really don't feel like deviating from what it is they're doing. I think what happens with Taurus, their philosophy and motto is really like, well, moving forward may actually outweigh the reward. The risk may outweigh the reward, or the negative of it outweighs the positive. The thing about it is, Taurus, though, at some point, most Taurus will leave a connection eventually, even though they might stay in it for a very sustained and protracted period. They may often will leave eventually. That is when Taurus finally puts their foot down and they reach their point of endurance of what they're going to take from somebody, whether it's being berated or listening to constant derogatory remarks, unprovoked outspokens, just general mistreatment. I think a lot of people. I mean, I could speak on this about this personally, having a Taurus ascendant, is that the thing about what with Taurus, I think it is, they're very basic people. They're not really very complex, but the things that they do in a connection may go unnoticed there because they're there for very basic, simple things. They will be there to do things that are beneficial for others. It could just be very simply just being there when they're needed, having their phone on, helping their friend if they fall down. Literally, sometimes they get up, or if they're in an impoverished situation, loan them a few bucks. These are things that often will go unnoticed because the energy of Taurus, that in terms of helping others and being beneficial to their friends or what have you, is sometimes very subtle, and they're very basic things. They could just be there simply to buy somebody some bottled water when they need it, or just basic things, or sweeping up somebody else's mess. And what happens is and when they but the thing about it is Taurus will not often be appreciated until they're actually gone from the connection, and that's when a lot of people, I believe, actually miss Taurus and see their worth. Remember that self-worth, and self-worth is connected with Taurus, ironically enough, and people will not often see Taurus's true worth until they leave. They often could be very oblivious to it up until that point. Now, another thing, and going back to the when Taurus leaves, again, it just has to do when they finally had enough, when they realize at some point that this relationship, this connection, this friendship is very detrimental to me. Maybe it's having an effect on their emotional stability. The good thing about Taurus is that the Taurus really will abstain very strongly from having any kind of major breakdown, emotional breakdown, or whatever, because they are very often very strong, very mentally strong people. They often have a very stable nervous system, and I think that pays dividends. They What will happen though with Taurus as well? Sometimes keep in mind that Taurus is the sign associated with money and income. They will leave a connection sometimes when it could be monetary related. They could be somebody, even though Taurus is very economical and they're not inclined to spend extravagantly. Taurus might be there to help bail people out when they're in trouble. They actually, I think, in a connection like with Leo, for example, even though Leo is known to be more extravagant and more generous with their funds, you could actually see Taurus bailing Leo out on a number of occasions because Taurus is more conservative with their spending, in contrast to Leo, which of course is more extravagant. And a lot of times Leo will have difficulty living within their own income, where Taurus can be much more disciplined as far as that goes. But what happens with Taurus is that if it's a monetary situation, surprisingly enough, it might be in a number of instances when they leave because they might feel that they're being used for their wallet and for their money, and it has nothing to do with their substance or who they are as a person. And they just eventually they may get tired of it if they're being conned or manipulated frequently. That is when they may have enough and take off. Now, I understand that this could apply and pertain to any zodiac sign. If somebody is being used and being manipulated constantly for monetary reasons, they may leave. Anybody may leave at any time they get tired of it. But Taurus may take it a little bit longer, and I would say there's a greater propensity for them to leave as far as that reasoning right there, because it is the sign synonymous, of course, associated with money. Now, another thing is that Taurus, well, what happens with Taurus, I think, at some point in time, when they, again, going back to the point when they reach their point of endurance of some kind of mistreatment, they look at it like they eventually understand that that person is not worth their time and they don't deserve their friendship. Remember, interestingly enough, Taurus is about self-worth, ironically. If Taurus actually needs to be cognizant and understand that at some point in time that that person is not even worth their time or energy anymore, and Taurus really gets the ultimate revenge by moving forward. They say, you know what, I don't need you in my life anymore. Let's see how you function without me. And that's what will happen with Taurus in many instances eventually. It's interesting because there was a song by a legendary singer, Glenn Campbell, who was a sun in Taurus and moon in Taurus. And he sang a song, By the Time I Get to Phoenix. Now, this may have been written by somebody else, but as I've stated in previous videos, that I do believe very strongly that actors and actresses, celebrities, which can include singers, they could be consciously or subconsciously drawn to things that suit that correspond with their astrological energies. And I think that song by Glenn Campbell is certainly no exception. The Time I Get to Phoenix, that basically in the song he's conveying that he basically is that he left somebody, and he didn't even there was no goodbye, there was nothing. He just he left a note hanging on a door or something, and he took off. Now he has Scorpio rising, Glenn Campbell had Scorpio ascendant, so it's flavored with surreptitious energy, leaving very sneakily too. But Taurus, even by itself, I think will leave a connection, and when they do leave a connection, it will often be without even a goodbye, without even any indication they're going, because what happens is Taurus says, okay, you disrespected me all this time. You never apologized to me for anything you did to me. You know what? The heck with you. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to respect you either. I'm going to leave, and I'm not even going to grace you with a goodbye. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with Taurus as well. If Taurus, and really Taurus is associated with values, as many of you may know. If Taurus is not valued, that is another thing, again, not being appreciated even. That is when they will often extricate themselves from situations that could be to their detriment. Now, another thing is we got to remember with Taurus is that Taurus is not always benign and good. All zodiac signs do have a positive and negative expression, of course. Taurus is no exception. If Taurus, you talk about a Taurus that could be very avaricious or greedy, depending, I mean, a lot of it, of course, could be predicated depending on aspects in their chart. If you have somebody's Taurus energy making an adverse sun, moon, or ascendant, an adverse aspect to the Pluto, this could be a person that might be overly fixated and obsessed with finances. They may never have enough money, and they might manipulate even to get, to get money. This could be a time when they leave a connection when they may not be able to get any more funds from somebody. So it can work the other way too. I mean, you talk about a negative Taurus. That is on the negative side. That is when they may leave a connection, and you might find some very negative Taurian people that might stay in a connection just for the monetary benefits, sadly, because of it. And another reason why Taurus may leave us at one point in time, you might now, despite being very persistent and loyal and steadfast in their connections, if you're somebody that lives on the edge and you're more like a Gemini or Aquarius, and you have a lot of unpredictable energy, I mean, there's an understanding that, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, there's understanding, of course, there's a reason why, for as far as Aquarius goes, why Taurus squares Aquarius by sign. And Aquarius, I mean, those two are obviously very incompatible. Taurus and Aquarius, and Aquarius can be very erratic and sporadic and unpredictable and like to do things spontaneously. And the thing about Taurus is they like to have their calmness, their peace, their stability, and don't like to have any deviation. They like to just kind of do their thing day to day. And the thing about it is, if Taurus is involved in a situation like that, they may eventually leave because they don't like to have shocks, surprises, unpredictable energy in their life. And it's not because they're necessarily being malicious. They just may leave or end a connection because they just can't live in that kind of situation. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.